Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being with us bright and early in the morning. I see a lot of coffee out there. Sip up. Anyone go to the pickleball rave last night? I heard that was that an April Fool's that somebody sent around, or did that really happen? It was a thing. Nobody knows. Hope it went well. I love me some pickleball. Yeah, a little bit more about my background. I've been with Seattle Theater Group for about 7 years now. I started in patron services and working in the box office. So we host about 700 shows a year for about 1 million people. So we are dealing with a lot of patrons with questions and accommodation requests. And I come from a long line of special education teachers, 3 generations. So it's kind of always been built in to me to figure out ways to make everything inclusive, treat everybody humanely with respect. So that kind of just led on my journey. And as we were for Seattle Theater Group, we had kind of been in a reactive phase for accommodation requests, and we really decided we needed to shift the narrative and become proactive. So our motto is always, we'll figure it out. But there's nothing that makes somebody more uncomfortable than hearing, we'll figure it out in the moment, and not, no, come, this is already set up. You don't worry about it, This is your entry. This is where you're going to sit. Here's your ticket prices. So we really shifted that narrative, and that's why we created the accessibility team to start working across departments to really figure out how we can work together and reducing barriers. Our main focus at Seattle Theater Group is reducing barriers and creating greater equity in the arts. So that's kind of our whole focus over there. From there, like Megan said, I got my accessibility coordinator certification program in the height of the pandemic, and that led to some crazy shifts in how we're providing performances, our education events. So it was a quick learning exercise on how to make your virtual events accessible. And then we shifted to reopening, and we really wanted to focus on our immunocompromised patrons as we were reopening. Again, everybody deserves to come to our shows and should have the right to come to our shows. So there was so much discussion on our masking policy, on our how to handle all different patrons. So it's been a learning curve, and now I'm here. The Kennedy Center is bringing the LEAD conference, the acronym, Leadership, Exchange in Arts and Disability, here to Seattle, like Megan said, for the first time since it started in about 2000. This is a conference that focuses mostly on arts and culture administration. Administrators coming and learning how to make your events accessible. I would highly recommend going. I went to the Boston one last year, and it is where you'll see the gold standard of making a conference accessible. Everything you think of, they thought of, and they do, and it's incredible. I've never been to a conference where it just felt like such a community, because you could tell everybody knew they were being respected there and were taken care of from registration through the whole thing. So yeah, we're partnering with them. We're excited to bring them out here. We're excited for them to show Seattle. And we'll get going with how to make your events accessible. Real quick show of hands. Who feels like accessibility is a foreign concept to them, that they are ready to learn ground level? Here we go. No shame, no shame. That's where I was. That's where everybody starts. Who feels like they have a grasp, but just are really needing some tools to implement? My people. Cool. All right, that's good to know. That's kind of how I can shift my narrative as I'm talking about these conversations. Didn't know if I need to start really baseline or if we have some people who already know baseline. We'll do a little bit of both. I got you. Okay. Well, we're going to start with just some disability information. There are numerous different disabilities. There's intersection disabilities, visual, non-visible disabilities. These can include heart and lung diseases, neurological disorders, mobility disabilities that you might not be able to see. Somebody might not use a walker or a cane or a wheelchair, but they can do stairs. So the first thing when you're thinking about training volunteers and such is training them what to ask, what not to ask, and what to just let people do. If somebody's going to the ADA restroom and it might not look on the surface that they need that, that's not your volunteers or workers' spot to step in and say, actually, this is for such and such. Let them go. You have no idea. So there's about 4 main types of disability that our architectural design kind of focuses on. Those are going to be mobility disabilities, like I said, people using wheelchairs, canes, walkers, scooters, crutches. Visual disabilities, that's going to be our blind and low vision. Hearing disabilities, those are going to be our deaf with capital D, deaf lowercase d, and our hearing loss. And then cognitive disabilities is going to be our largest group. That falls with our neurodiverse population, our individuals who aren't able to do self-tasks, and it is our largest group in the United States. Alrighty, a little data to get you all woken up. About 1/4 of the US population identifies as having a disability. That is a lot. When you're starting to think of your events, how many accommodations are you getting? Is 1/4 of the people coming requesting accommodations? If not, then they feel like there's some sort of barrier to attending. So that's something to start thinking about, really like start processing every event. You should have about 1/4 of people who need accommodation if you're really making it inclusive. The US population is aging. In 2022, about 17% of the American population was 65 and older, and by 2050, I think it's supposed to rise to 22%. It's gonna be a big jump. A lot of people, as they're getting older, don't recognize that they're hearing loss or all of a sudden needing glasses. That's a disability. You know, there's some stigma around it, so they just are, it's old age. No, it's a disability. We need to reduce that stigma so people feel comfortable asking for accommodations, saying, hey, I can't see from really far back. Is there any way? Hello, and I'm back. Hey, playing tricks. So yeah, so kind of just as that population rises, we are gonna need a lot more accommodations and people who are able to handle accommodation requests. A little bit of breakdown, about 12% of people have mobility disabilities in the United States, about 23%, 24% have cognitive, 6% hearing, and about just under 5% for vision. So, why do you want to make your event successful? 1, it's the right thing to do. That should be your number 1. 2, it's the law, so do it. 3, it's great business. There is a lot of untapped money in the disability community. There's about $490 billion in after-tax disposable income for working age people with disabilities. And that's pretty similar to other markets. Black Americans, Hispanic, Latinx Americans, that's a pretty similar demographic of funding. As far as discretionary income, for people with disabilities is about $21 billion, and this does vary. I think Seattle has a bit higher because we have our tech industry who employs a bunch of people with disabilities. If you're gonna go to the more rural areas, obviously that's gonna be lower. I say this as and out of the same side of my other mouth, same mouth, other side, having a disability is very expensive. And yes, there is some population that has it, but there's a lot of population who cost is a barrier because they're paying for their accessible services, they're paying for their doctor's bills. And so this is an opportunity to really think about how can I reduce a cost barrier for people with disabilities coming to my event. This could be looking at a sliding scale for your registration costs. If people identify as needing accommodation, pay what you can. This can be looking into scholarship and sponsorship to pay for those scholarships. I know as we're working on the LEAD Kennedy Center, we've got a lot of funding in from sponsors because we said X amount is going to be going to scholarships for people. And that really got our sponsors on board, knowing, okay, I'm actually just going to give access, not just my logo on the back of something. Yeah. All right, so what we're going to be talking today, we're going to go over some budgeting, your invitation, staff training, on-site engagement, and follow-up. Sound good? Budget accordingly. Build it in your budget before anything else. This is going to save you so many headaches and so many scramblings of, oh my God, we don't have it. And if you don't have people who request accommodations to fully give your budget or tap your budget, great. You have money left over, but also not great because you should. You should be using all that. You should have people who need all that. So things to think about when you're budgeting is your interpretive services, AV equipment, your various print materials, your wayfinding signage. There's never enough signs in a building to tell you where you need to go. Trust. You can look at housing for personal care attendants, if you want to put that in your budget, if there's any speakers who are coming who have accommodation requests, figuring out what their accommodation requests, special dietary restrictions, so you might need to order different food. So The Kennedy Center, their budget for accessibility for their conference is over $100,000. This is a 5-day conference, 2 days of capacity building, about 4-hour workshops, and then 3 days of about 115 concurrent sessions. Yeah, that's the gold standard. Respect that you do. Maybe don't have $100,000 to pay for that. But again, this is a great time to look for sponsorships. A lot of insurance companies are looking to sponsor things that make their people's events more accessible. I know we've definitely got our insurance company over at STG. We have Primera, who has our Broadway name and title, but then they found out we have all these accessible services. Boom, gave us another $100K just to pay for the accessible services on top of it. So this can be a really sponsorship opportunity, and that's one way to kind of figure out your costs. It all starts with your invitation. And that's a lie. It all starts with your site scouting and making sure that your spot is going to be accessible. When we started planning the conference for Kennedy Center, I'm going to be referencing that a lot. Buckle up. When we started planning it, the group came out here in July, and we spent 4 days going everywhere that the conference might potentially extend an arm to in any capacity. We went to every hotel, we went to every museum, anything that we might be like, hey, and even after the after the conference in the evening, you might want to go see the SAM. We went to SAM to make sure they're all ready. We went to the MOPOP, we went everywhere. And it's also, the Seattle Hills has really shifted how we've planned that conference. When the conference was in Raleigh and Boston, we focused on send them out to the city. You know, there's so much, but those are very flat cities. Here we're focusing on get them to the Seattle Center. Let's do an event there. There's the monorail. That's going to be accessible. We're not, don't try to get people in shuttles. 19 people might need a wheelchair. How are you going to get them all shuttled out to Woodland Park Zoo? So it's really like shifting your focus on where you're going to house your events and have them. And then from there, looking at your hotels, how many rooms do they have that are ADA can accommodate ADA requests? How many deaf kits does a hotel have? If you don't know what a deaf kit is, these are kits that hotels can hand out that will either have a cell phone that you can text if they need rather than using the phone in the room. It might have some visual fire or alarm systems or alarm clocks in it. It might have a headset amplifier for people who are... I just keep going. I mean, it's a small room. Everyone can hear me if it goes out. If you can't, yell louder. And I will. So it really starts at the scout site. Because once you have your scout site and you go, okay, I'm going to hold my conference at this summit. Does every room, if I want to be able to have 200 attendees in a room, is there going to be 36-inch aisle access to get anybody with a wheelchair in here? Is there room to have an ASL interpreter on every stage? Is there, no shame, a ramp to get to your stage so that people who use a disability or use any sort of mobility device can get up easily? These are really things you need to start thinking in the planning process before you go, yeah, I love it there. And then you go, oh, that room actually only fits a quarter of what I thought once I want to put all my interpretive and accessible services in there. So when you're doing your planning before you say sign any contract, make some sketches and make sure the room fits to be accessible. Once you have all that, you can create a great invitation, right? You can really start building what people need to know to feel like they've been thought about in the invite. This can include a comment section in your RSVP for accessibility accommodations requests. Highly recommend having somebody as a point of contact so there's nothing worse than just emailing the void, Who's going to respond? Fingers crossed. So having a contact person with information or interpretation or interpretive and accommodation requests. Having multiple ways to register. A lot of registration forms don't work with screen readers, so those who are blind might need a number to call so that you can just help them register over the phone. Something that really, it does take time, but having that option is a barrier removal. Disclaimer about interpretive services. Interpreters, open captioners, yes, we have AI, who is doing our captioning today, amazing, can be few and far between. I know for audio describers in the arts world, we have 2 for all of Seattle. Every theater who wants to do an audio describer has to figure out 2 people in our city. Interpreters are shrinking as well. In Hawaii, I think I just saw there's 30 interpreters for 50,000 people in Hawaii. So, yeah. If anyone's interested in funding some trainings, that is something that's going to help our whole community. So something to think about. And then make sure materials reflect. I failed my first TED Talk.
Sorry about that. There's something funky with this one.
It could be me. Oh, this is fun for everyone to hear. Hey, is this better? Yeah, all right. And now I'm on American Idol. No, all right. Marketing materials. Make sure your marketing materials reflect people with disabilities in your event space. Representation matters, you know. Are there people in a wheelchair who are able to make it through your exhibit halls? Make sure people know that. Make sure people see it. Are there people using hearing listening devices? Make sure people are seen doing that, so it's not feeling like, I'm just going to hopefully reach out and have this request. Show them that it's already there and set up for them. Detailed venue information to add in your invitation as well. Non-accessible areas, we have 3 historic theaters built from 1905 to 1928. There's some floors that just don't have elevators, so it's very important for people to know if you're coming to an event where only the main floor is where you're going to be kind of stuck at, if you can't get up stairs or something like that, let people know that so they can plan accordingly. Let people know there is an ADA restroom, a gender-neutral restroom, where those are. And if there's multiple on different floors, I know the Kennedy Center, when they take over a hotel, they changed all the bathrooms. They make them all gender-neutral. And then they make some specific areas just for ADA restrooms as well. So work with your hotel partners, see what you can do, you know. In this case, maybe they just have a little more sway than most, but they come in and they're like, this is what we want. And hotels go, okay, because they want your money. So yeah, get those people in the room. Personal care attendants, if somebody's needing somebody to come with them in order to fulfill their daily tasks, make sure people know if it's free for those personal care attendants to come. See where they're going to be seated. You know, for us at the theaters, when we have a personal care attendant, our policy is we're going to get them as close to the person who needs them as possible. Our problem is reserved tickets. They might have bought a ticket in the middle of a row, and you know, we sold out. So we're going to put them at the end of the row, or we're going to ask people to move in this situation, but just give people a heads up to know what to expect as they're coming to the event if they have a personal care attendant. There's no reason you should be charging for a personal care attendant. They are there to make sure that person who's actually attending can enjoy it to the fullest, so don't. And parking. Seattle, love it. Where do you park? How do you park? Where is it nearby? Is there a hill you're going to have to walk from the parking lot? That can be a big thing for people in wheelchair. You know, when we first started our accessibility team, we created a community advisory group, and we still have that going. We meet about every 2 months, and we just give them free tickets to come to shows, and then they tell us their experience. Be humble. You think you've done great things, and you find out, why the hell are your scansions all over the sidewalk? I can't actually get up the ramp, or, you know, and you're like, thank you. So take that knowledge with a lot of grace and, you know, appreciate people's insights. But one of the main things was everybody has to park a few blocks down the hill usually to come to our shows. First person in the wheelchair was like, God, I knew there was a hill. I would have brought a different wheelchair. I would have had my companion meet me at the garage instead of at the doors. You know, so those kind of small things can really impact somebody's experience at your event before they even get to your doors. Public transport. Do your research for them. Figure out where your local or your closest light rail station is, your closest bus routes, yada, yada, yada. Figure out how people who aren't going to be driving themselves are able to get to your event and let them know that. Get that information out to them. And also letting people know where loading and unloading zones are. Most places should have them. They just did a bunch of construction on Pine, and ours doesn't really look like a loading zone anymore, and it is. So you know, we have to make sure we're getting that out in the message. People who've gone to our shows for years are all of a sudden going, where is this pole? And it's still there. It just looks a little different, you know? So here's an example of our invitation we have for STG, Seattle Theater Group's gala that's coming up on May 5th. This is what we have posted on our website. I'll read through it in case y'all can't see that far. All are invited to join us for this incredible evening. Interpretive services, PCA tickets, and ADA seating provided upon request. Please include these requests in special accommodation text under the detailed information when registering, or contact us information below. The main entrance to the Paramount Theater is on an incline, and the entrance to the main floor seating has side aisle ramps. The seating is standard height, dining tables with 10 movable chairs. Access to view auction items on stage requires stairs. ADA and non-gendered bathrooms available in the main lobby of the theater. Performance part of the evening will include stage lighting, loud music, fidgets. Y'all know what fidgets are. I got a bag of them right here. If you don't, we can talk. Those are available, as well as headphones. Really important to have headphones and earplugs if you're having any loud events for people to hand out. Another great branding opportunity. Put a little sticker on a headphone case. Love it. Please let us know if your party requires accommodation. We cannot guarantee requests made less than 2 weeks in advance. Try, but you can't guarantee. Like I said, some of these resources are spread pretty thin, and any requests that come in less than 2 weeks, it can be pretty difficult to set up. So just make that known. Legally, if you give an option in the registration process for somebody to put in an accommodation request, and then they come the day, and they don't fill it out, but then they come to you the day of your event, you're not legally required to fulfill that accommodation request, but you should try. But you are protected by the law, so that's why you want to make sure you give plenty of time and easy ways for people to request those accommodations so they feel like they're set up. We give information on directions, public transport, parking, our contact information, and so this is like a pretty solid example of, you know, all the things I just said. Various people with various disabilities were addressed here and should feel like they know what is coming and how to get a hold of us. Training. Staff volunteer and training. I don't know, who are we event planners here? Is that most of us, yeah? Or event venues? Mostly planners, right? Okay, get yourself trained. There are so many webinars. There's so many resources out there, ADA centers. They all have etiquette, you know. There's so many conferences. Like I said, go to the LEAD conference. There's ADA national conferences. Just get out there, and maybe you're not seeing sessions that are, okay, the event planning sessions, but go there with the insight of how do they make this accessible? You know, rather than going for the session, go for the vibes. Love it. And kind of just get a view of what's happening in these environments of people who are expected to be the standard for accessibility. Share your resources. If you find a great interpreter or somebody who worked really well with you, pass it along to other event planners. You know, like, I know it can be pretty competitive. We have it in the arts world too, of limited resources. Let me hold on to them, because if I all of a sudden need a conference day, I don't want them to know this is my best interpreter. Don't do that. Share the wealth. We want people to have a great experience at everything, and you know, especially for Seattle, I think it's really important for us to start building a culture of accessibility across all of our events and across all of our arts and cultural institutes. And the only way we're going to do that is starting to work together closer and closer. We have the Seattle Cultural Accessibility Consortium that's run by Elizabeth Ralston, and she puts on, I think, 3 or 4 sessions a year, full day. They went to the zoo. They walked through the zoo. How did they make that accessible? It's really like hands-on learning. These are great things, and they're open. So SCAC, look into that. They have a bunch of resources there. Event staff training, disability etiquette. This is going to be for maybe your volunteers or just people who are working day of. Schedule a week before, an hour Zoom or an hour in person to just kind of go over these, you know, small facts. You don't know what volunteers are coming in. So don't touch a person's wheelchair. Make sure you're looking at the person who is deaf in their eyes and not their interpreter eyes when you're having a conversation. You know, it's these kind of things that just might not come natural to people who don't know yet. So give them that information. I would definitely suggest having people who are like specially trained on your volunteer team to handle certain things. And everybody know who those people are. You can't expect everybody to know everything. Pick some leads, you know, and go, okay, I don't I don't know ASL, but this person does. Give me 1 second. I'm going to get in contact, Figure out who those people are that your volunteers can contact and get in the room quickly. Have multiple floating volunteers. If somebody is blind or low vision and is saying, where's the elevator? You aren't going to go that way. You should have 2 or 3 volunteers stationed in place so one of those volunteers can go, let me walk you there, and they aren't leaving their station abandoned. So think about just having floating volunteers. We call them tipsters at the Kennedy Center. And they're just kind of roaming around looking for anyone who looks confused, lost, needing a friend. I don't know. And emergency preparedness. This is a huge one. We deal with these with our theaters. Life's real. You can go from, fire. How are you getting people out with a wheelchair quickly, or your blind patrons out quickly with fire, earthquake, active shooting? Nothing we really want to talk about, but a lot of people with disabilities are going to be the first ones who are left behind because everybody's rushing to get out of a situation. So get some people trained up to handle those situations calmly and to know what to do ahead of time, because it's a panic moment. We plan this a lot in our theaters. How are we going to get them out of the room? On-site inclusivity. Actually, I'm going to take a break. Everybody good? Cool? All right. I'm not going to take a break. I'm just checking in. I just feel like I'm talking a lot and making sure everybody's enjoying it. All right. Interpretive service and captioning. Multiple different options here. ASL interpreters, they can run about $150 to $200 per person per hour for interpreter. Interpreters usually need to be in pairs. It's very exhausting to do. So, start when you're planning your budget on that. Kind of think about, there's a few ways to do it. You can have ABC sessions, have interpreters on stage. You can have, if people request, get what they want to do for their schedule and then plan the interpreters accordingly. Or to allow the most flexibility, every person who asks for one, they get 2 for the week. They get 2 for the session, and they get to do whatever they want, and they walk around with those interpreters, and that is great. I think it's the most expensive for sure, but if you're thinking about networking opportunities, how are they going to talk to people in their passing? How are, those 15 minutes when you're out there connecting with colleagues you haven't seen in 20 minutes? The interpreter's only on the stages. How are they going to be a part of those conversations? How are you going to pull them in? So yes, it is the most expensive, but it is going to be your most inclusive. Captioning, open captioning, AI. Wow. New times. Before the pandemic, never heard of. We had somebody back there typing with an open cart machine. We have AI now. We also have, with our dwindling pool of local resources, the theater is starting to use, I think, the guys in New York that we use for all of our open captioning for our shows. We just have a live, as long as you can get a live feed to them, they can caption from anywhere now. And pretty darn quick. It's crazy to see the response time. You'd think there'd be a lag or something. No, it's been wild. It's been wild to watch this journey of open captioning. And I think we're just on the precipice of AI really nailing it, kind of creepily. Yeah. Tactile interpretation. This is going to be for folks who are blind and deaf. This is going to be at the theaters. We have somebody seated on each side of the individual. One is doing tactile in one hand on what is happening on stage, and the other one is doing tactile of what is being said. So that can kind of increase your cost because you're going to need 2 or 3 per person. It is incredible to watch. And it's just, I don't know. It was one of the coolest things that I've ever seen at our shows. Just to see somebody who had enough confidence and love for this show to be I'm going to figure out how to sit through this 2.5-hour show with this happening. That is so much input to take. But that's the love of the arts. And, if you have a great event, you're going to want those people to have those passion there too. So figure out how to get them in there. Audio describers. This is for people who are blind or low vision. They'd say Joe is sitting up in a white sweater, wearing glasses, talking on a mic in between what I was doing. That's what they're doing, is they're describing the in-between moments of what's happening. Dwindling. Like I said, we have 2 for the arts right now. And sighted guides. We use volunteers for these for Kennedy Center. These are going to be for our blind patrons or attendees. They just kind of walk them around, show them where to be, get them into the room, make sure they're seated, make sure if they have water, if there's a dining table, they go get their food for them. It's a great opportunity to just kind of let people not feel like they need to navigate space without that kind of extra help. In your sessions, reserve seating. For the Kennedy Center, every session has interpreters. Every session has open captioning. A lot of people are still wearing their masks. A lot of people have neuroprocessing and neurodiversity disorders. So it's really starting to think about how you set up your room to allow for them to kind of have their own space and feel comfortable. So for, I'm good. Love it. Water break, no. We usually have our front row reserved for people who need ASL services. We usually have a back corner for people who need to stand up and provide some fidgets in the corner so that if they need to fidget with anything, they can and they won't be disruptive. We have people who, this is a mask corner. We would love everybody who wants to sit over here wear a mask. It's just kind of like building those communities, but don't say required. Because you want to make sure that they can still sit with their colleagues. One of my best friends had to go to these conferences with Elizabeth. She is deaf. She reads lips. We have to sit up front. But I want to be with her, you know what I mean? So make sure that they can sit with their colleagues and their friends too, and it's not so reserved. Caption your videos. We're going to be playing a video later. If you're showing any videos in our presentation, have them captioned already. If they don't have AI captioning, you can upload your video to YouTube and they caption it for you. It might take, depending on how long your video is, it can take up to a day, but AI captions your video if you upload to YouTube. You might need to go in there and add a comma and do some spelling corrections, but if you're on a time crunch and need to get it done, that's a great way to just have some captioning available. Service animal relief areas. Get them. At the Kennedy Center, we reserve 2 parking spots in the garage, and we lay out AstroTurf. Might put up a picket fence, might put a fire hydrant, and give you the mood, but that's what we're going to do, and that makes it very easy for people to find. In Boston, we were in the heart of the city. I did not see a grass patch anywhere near our hotel, so if we didn't have that for them, it would have been a really rough time for individuals who brought service animals. So that's one that a lot of people don't think of, and it's pretty easy to just get 10 yards of AstroTurf at Home Depot and roll that stuff out somewhere. And then look at various mediums for your materials. Large print materials, Braille. You can look at having your agenda recorded, so you can give somebody an audio version of your agenda. So if they can't read it or they are more of an audio processing person, you can have that all laid out for them. Take a little time ahead to record it. You can look into having USB drives of people's presentations. For anyone who's blind, it might use a screen reader. That way they can just plug it right into their laptop while they're listening to the conversation, have it being read. So there's a lot of different stuff you can do there with your various materials. Signage. You heard me say before, never enough. I walked in here, there's a lot of signs, but my first thing was, where's the elevator? No shame. No shame to anyone. When I call these things out, it's not against your event. It's a learning opportunity for everyone. And I think when a lot of people hear about accessibility, they kind of get anxiety and they clam up and they feel, oh God, we're talking about laws now. We're talking about this. And I think it's really important to keep this conversation open. And if you're hearing anything, it's only constructive criticism. So when I said no ramp, next year. So signage everywhere. Just really make it easy for people and include large print, add some Braille on the signage. If you have a sighted guide, that way people can lead them up to the sign and they can kind of figure out where they want to go themselves. Maps everywhere. You can never have enough maps. Like I said before, having staff and volunteers who can kind of just float and make sure they can help anyone and kind of walk them to where they need to be or assist in any way. Show them where the service animal relief area is. Look at your layout. Make sure all your spaces have 36 inches for wheelchairs to get through. Make sure if you have multiple tables in a auditorium that multiple tables are accessible. Look for hazards on the ground. Looking pretty great in here. Not a lot of wires and stuff, but I don't know about the trade show up there yet. I haven't gone in or down wherever we are. I would assume there's probably a lot of things crisscrossing. Start thinking about that. Those are going to be trip hazards, and a lot of people who use canes or who have low vision can't see down, but they can see out. So really kind of think of how you can make, is it neon tape just to really draw your attention down or something like that, or give like a highlighted view for somebody who might not have great vision in their lower peripheral. I know a lot of people's favorite question. Service animals versus support animal. Can I take a peacock on a plane? I would love to see it. But service animals are specifically trained to work or perform for the benefit of an individual with a disability. They have a specific training to do that. They do not need to be certified. They do not need to wear a vest. They can be trained by the person themselves. They do not have to come from a training Brigadoon dogs or something like that. They can be trained by the person. Versus support animals who might, yes, help somebody with anxiety, but they aren't trained to help somebody with anxiety. And it might be, they help me, but if this person's like, yes, but they're also trained to smell my breath, and if they can smell that something's off in this, they go into an action to help, so that's like the difference between them. They just calm me down and know they are trained to do something, and that is why they're in here. The two questions you can ask a person with a service animal is this service animal required due to a disability? And is this service animal trained to perform a specific task? If they say yes to both of those, they're in. Don't question it. Yeah. First question is this dog? Okay, so dog or mini horse. Love it. Sensory Friendly Aladdin coming up on the 27th. We're having Lil Bit, the mini horse, the therapeutic mini horse in the theater with us. So mini horses count. But for most part, it's dogs. Mini horses are going to be for more people with mobility disabilities who need something a little sturdier to lean on. So that's going to be what their training's for. Dogs can do the wide gambit. So is this service animal trained? Or no, is this service animal required for a disability? And if that answer is yes, is this service animal trained for that specific disability? Now, somebody says, yes, the dog's acting a fool. You can't ask them to leave. The law requires them to have their pet or their animal under control, and that they're not barking, they're not using the restroom, they have to be under control. If they get to the point where they're not under control and they're disrupting your services, that is when you can ask them to leave. So if somebody says yes, send them in. You aren't allowed to let them have them on chairs. You aren't allowed to you don't have to let them hold them, things like that. Some might actually use a harness. Like I said, for dogs who sense hormones being off, they need to be closer to your face, but for the most part, on the ground. So yeah, that's service animals. You can't bring a peacock on a plane as much as you want to. Or you can try. I mean, I want to be on that party plane. What I would say to this all, though, is if that dog is not, or alligator, is not disrupting, let him in. If it's going to ease a patron, why are you putting up the fight? Give them the opportunity to enjoy it. If the dog starts acting up, that's when the questions can start coming in. But just kind of let them in. Go with their gut. All right. For those with neurodiversity and sensory processing needs, there's quite a few different things that you can do on site to help. First is going to be some quiet zones, designated some seating areas out of the main hustle and bustle, include comfortable seating, lower lighting if you can, some fidgets. Just give people a space to kind of get away. Sensory alerts. Clearly communicate in advance if your show or your event is going to have strobes, loud music, scent. A lot of people have scent issues that come up with scent, so you can ask for your attendees to not wear perfume and stuff to really help. But if you don't have any control over that, let people know. Let people know what food is going to be there in case they have a nut allergy or gluten-free or whatever, and they need to prepare accordingly, or no to not go in the dining hall because there is shellfish, give them ahead of time so you're not EpiPen, oh my God moment.
flexible seating options. I kind of talked about this earlier. You know, if there's a back corner that you can have that's able for people to stand, or if there's more comfortable seating that you can have, there's like some crazy great little like love sacks still around everyone that we throw out, and some bean bags and stuff like that that we throw out at our events just to kind of give a variety of seating arrangements. I'm looking at these. These don't look too cushiony, so I bet some of you would love a bean bag right now. Your sensory-friendly materials, noise canceling and reducing headphones, fidget tools at registration. I have... Why does he have the bag up here, you ask? Well, let me tell you. Talked about Primera. We have Primera Poppets. You know, this is a great branding opportunity and a great sponsorship opportunity. We have Primera Squeeze Stars. We have whatever the marble in the mesh is called. So there's a bunch of different varieties of tools that you can hand out to allow people to fidget and not disrupt others within their sessions. And then also just having some books, coloring books, word searches, just anything that can really ease somebody's mind, having those readily available for people. That's going to be great too. And your social narrative. Yeah. Whose job is this? Me as an event planner or you as a venue to create your social narrative? And the answer is both. I would say venues and hotels create your own social narrative that event planners can fold into theirs. And a social narrative is going to be sent out to folks ahead of time to really let them prepare. A lot of people have, whoa, we're already at 10 minutes? You guys, I had no idea I was going to be able to talk this long. Okay. Make one. Moral of the story, make one. Show people what they can expect and where to find registration, all that kind of stuff. Here's a couple. This is one that we created at the Moore for Charlie Brown. You're showing what people can expect. You're going to show up at the door. You're coming to the Moore Theater. Your ticket and entrance area. This is what the lobby looks like. I will send this out to anyone who's like, oh my God, last 10 minutes. Theater door, inside the theater, stage, bathroom, and then just what they can expect. Do you have an intermission? Are there going to be breaks between, you know, every hour you get a 15-minute break to go to the restroom or something? Just really something to prepare somebody. And then a sensory guide. We create these for all of our Broadway shows. Our concerts just come and go too fast, but this is a great way to prepare people for what to expect. In this session, my sensory guide would be, he has a mic. Yeah, it's pretty easy. But if you're down in the lobby hall or something, and there's the keynote who might have bow, 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 and lasers, and, you know, like really prepare people, strobe lights, smoke machines, all that. So you can really actually like break it down. This is obviously by act, but you can break it down by session. You could break it down by hours, things like that. So just kind of think of how you can do it. And then follow up, important follow up. Connect with people who asked for accommodation services and see if they used them and enjoyed them. There's no point in just sending people off into the wind and going, well, I hope that went well. No, you want to prepare for next year. You want to prepare for next event. So connect with those people who requested accommodations. Send out surveys. Like I said, if you can send 5 or 6 people, give them free tickets to just attend and kind of be your advisory panel so they can really give you some honest feedback and not feel like, well, they tried. I don't want to, you know. No, give me that honest feedback. And then make your materials accessible for sharing. So I said I'll send this out to you. I will send this out to you after I go in and make all the text black and white, after I go in and put in alt text, after I go in and make sure my video is captioned, because if I'm sending this out, I don't want it to be sent out and people can't actually use it. Why black and white? Contrast. It's really important to have a high contrast for people who use screen readers, because a lot of the times like this, I highly doubt a screen reader would be able to use that. So you want to change it to black and white for the high contrast options.
I just have a comment about the gender-neutral bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that at our conference last year, and we had a Muslim staff member come back after the event and say, hey, I just want to let you know, in our culture, we can't share bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the note that folks that are victims of domestic violence
Yeah.
may not be comfortable with that. So now we have male, female, and
Gender neutral. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So the comment from a previous conference or event was that they did have gender neutral bathrooms, and then a Muslim member who came to, we're supposed to go to the mic to ask questions, everyone, and I'm sorry I did not instruct that. I'm just game time. a Muslim individual who is not able to use gender-neutral bathrooms, or individuals who might be victims of sexual assault do not feel comfortable, and so providing multiple options. At the Kennedy Center, we make the floors that have the actual events gender neutral, and then we'll tell people non-gender neutral you can find on the first floor or the fourth floor. So you do have it within your services, but you can send people out, and that's very important. Yeah, you want to make sure everybody. Yeah. No. Call me out. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have any accommodations? That's it. That's simple. People who need them know to answer that question. You can add into that, such as ASL, open captioning. Give a couple options or examples of people what would be requested, but just a very simple, do you have any accommodation requests? Cool. I'm hitting something wrong. A lot of resources among our community. There's a bunch locally. Sensory Access is the one who works on all of our social narratives and sensory guides. We have them come in and kind of do things ahead of time, so you can definitely work with them. They're incredible. And your ADA centers, every region has an ADA center. I'm pretty sure there's 7. Reach out to them. They come do our trainings. They answer my questions in real time. Northwest ADA Center is incredible. So if you're local, they're a great resource. And then finally, unless there's any other questions real quick, I just want to show you a little short video we do our sensory-friendly performances. Like I said, we have Aladdin coming up. We've done Frozen right before the pandemic, and before that we did Lion King. And this is going to be a video of our Lion King sensory-friendly, just kind of what we're doing, and some interviews of parents. This is a little more child-focused, but really I want you to see the impact of what fully thinking about making your event accessible can have on somebody.
It is so exciting to see it finally happening. The freedom to be yourselves, that is so special.
Today we're inviting different families and groups to come and experience a sensory-friendly performance, which is a show that has been modified so families that have different sensory needs can come and experience the performance in a judgment-free environment.
This sensory-friendly performance started 4 years ago at the Broadway League when I learned about it from Theater Development Fund. And we are so thrilled that on January 5th, 2019, we are initiating Seattle Theater Group's first sensory-friendly performance, and we hope for many more to come.
We have set up different stations throughout the theater that are called sensory areas, where families can come and take a break if they need to during the performance. There have been some show modifications as well. There's extra support staff. Everyone from our team at Seattle Theater Group has been trained to be welcoming and to give the love.
I'm here at the sensory show with my 5-year-old who is on the spectrum, and so we're watching the show. We probably wouldn't be able to come otherwise.
I'm looking forward to a group of really deserving people being able to watch a show without being shamed.
It's crazy. He loves watching the theater. He loves musicals, but it's too much for him. Without the lights and the music and everything, usually I have to see a show first and then bring him along. So this is remarkable. This is an amazing thing.
I have a 17 and a 4-year-old who both have autism, and we haven't been able to see a show in 17 years because it's so hard. Yeah, thank you for turning the bar into a sensory center. Who does that? You guys get it. For letting him wear his headphones without any judgment. And for all the parents who are here who get it, and they're not judging us for being loud.
It means that I can finally be able to see who the characters actually are.
It means we can come and be excited about coming instead of coming with dread.
I'm most excited about just to see the look on the faces of some of the people that are walking through these doors, that look of wonder when they see this beautiful theater, to see them interacting. You know, I have a feeling we're going to see kids standing up and singing along with some of the songs and just really getting excited about the story and just really building memories with their family, again, because a lot of times they don't have the opportunity to do this, and they're going to build some amazing memories today.
Every time a theater does a sensory-friendly performance of The Lion King, it gets better and better and better because awareness is raised, be inclusive of all audience members, and why not do it? Why not make the effort? Every time I'm at a theater that's doing a sensory-friendly performance of The Lion King and the circle of life starts, the beginning, I get tears in my eyes because it's happening again and again, and it will replicate and go on and on and on until sensory-friendly programming will be the norm, not an event.
Couple few quick takeaways. Like I said, put it in the budget from the beginning. That's going to save you a lot of headache. If you have money left over, then you know you have work to do for next year to make sure those accommodations are being taken. That's just how each of us are unique. So is everyone's disability. Work with everyone. Find out if somebody's coming has a preferred local interpreter and see if you can get them hired. You know, a lot of people are using these services throughout the community quite often. See how you can pull those members in. Yeah?
I kind of have two questions.
Yeah.
One, I would love to be able to do more at my conferences. Getting buy-in from leadership is very difficult, especially when people aren't asking for it. Mm-hmm. They don't want to do anything until someone asks. But obviously it just means people aren't coming, so that's why nobody asked about it. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if you or anyone really has ways that we can try and get more buy-in. And then additionally, again, if you or anyone else here has tips that I can give my speakers, because I notice I have a lot of people who don't think through their slides, like even for like color blindness, font size, the contrast. I'd love to be able to like pass something on to my speakers to help them do a better job as well. So anyway, just anything on that.
Buy-in. Loaded question. I hate to say it, that slide about it's good business, that's how you're going to get buy-in. If you don't have your execs or your leaders who are just morally understanding that this is what they should be doing, show them they're missing money. There's money left on the table. Sadly, money talks in America. That is how you're going to get a lot of buy-in. 2, you can look at different, like, for us, for STG, before I jumped on the accessibility team, for ASL accommodations, it was like, okay, if somebody calls in, we'll figure out where to seat them, and then we'll get an interpreter set up, and then it's all very reactive. Put an end to that. In our contracts, we're holding a limited number of seats within the first 10 rows of the theater, held at the lowest price level for anyone who needs any sort of interpretive services, so cost is not a barrier because they need to be close to the stage. We built that into our ticketing system. In the year since that happened, our ASL requests have gone up over 50% because the community knows it's there. So do it. Thank you. Applause. Yes, it's not for me, but like really like building your systems is going to show that it just needs communication. People need to know it's out there. But once they knew it was out there and once they knew they were going to be taken care of, they came back in droves and they brought friends and they brought families who they never thought they were going to be able to enjoy a show together. And there's a really interesting shift happening right now. I'm sorry. I know I'm so over. And if anyone wants to leave, bounce. But there's a big interesting shift as far as interpretive services because a lot of younger children are getting cochlears. I have a 2-year-old niece who's deaf. She got cochlear implants at 1. They're amazing now, but she doesn't love to wear them all the time. Rips those off. So we're teaching ASL, but we're also teaching her speaking. But because of this big shift in generations, it used to be ASL came to one thing, open caption was a different event. And now they want them together because those communities are blending more than ever. So you can really start looking at interpretive services as a holistic approach and what people want both. I watch everything with captions. I need them. I'm not necessarily hard of hearing, but my processing, I love reading. So yeah, buy-in, difficult. Show them where the money is. And show them places where investing has had an impact and increased profitability. And I cannot remember your second question at all. Speaker tips. Yeah, there are a lot of great resources. The NEA has some great things on how to do presentations. National Endowment for the Arts, they have some great slides. Seattle Cultural Accessibility Consortium has a whole page of insights and tips and tools. The Vera Institute has very outlined tips for registration, tips for interpreters, tips for speakers. So those are a few different ones. The resources are out there. There's a lot of different checklists. But again, it's getting speakers and stuff to go to these conferences where this is talked about so that they can really learn from themselves and see it in real time. I think that's it. Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you for putting up with me. I hope this was helpful. I have so many business cards. So if you want anything, come and get it. And then let's connect. Let's figure out how to make your event successful. Be excited to get accommodation requests. That means you are making an event that people feel comfortable in coming. Thank you.